Welcome back to another live and amplified Indie Fusion podcast. I'm your host, Tom Quiet, and we are here with our pancreatic cancer fundraiser. And we've got our special guest, Selis, joining us. How's it going tonight?
It's going good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to have you. You were actually one of the first people that kind of signed up. So it's cool that were one of the first people to sign up and you're one of the first interviews to go out. So it's really cool how that kind of all worked out. So
Well, I'm happy to be here. I
yeah.
really appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you. It's a very personal situation. My mom passed away a few years ago from pancreatic cancer. And throughout that battle, my co host and business partner in Live and Amplified, his uncle passed away from pancreatic cancer. So it just kind of affects the entire team. So,
I'm so sorry. I know you're feeling. I lost my dad in 2009 to
uh,
pancreatic cancer. So,
wow. It's, it's really interesting. Like you don't even like before my mom got diagnosed, I didn't even really think about pancreatic cancer and how many people it affects. And then once my mom got diagnosed, it just like I don't know if I just started paying attention to it or what, but yeah.
yeah. Yeah. And it's really hard, especially like with my dad. He was not sick a day in his life. He was
Hmm.
strong and literally started feeling bad, poorly for about a month and went in to
Hmm.
get checked. And they're like, yeah, you got 3 months.
Yep.
And that was
That's
it. That's all I got. It
yeah.
was unbelievable.
Yeah. It was my mom was having back pains and she went to a chiropractor because she was in her mid 60s, so she was she just thought it was like joint pain or arthritis or whatever. And so she went to the chiropractor a couple times and then she got really jaundice
Yes.
and so they went to the ER or whatever and they made a kind of a diagnosis there, but then they were like, yeah, she's got stage 4,
Yeah.
weeks, maybe months. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was
It's
pretty quick.
it's the worst diagnosis because usually when they find it, it's stage four. It's like,
Hmm.
well, good luck. Now, stage four doesn't always mean death for a lot of other cancers,
Hmm.
but usually not for pancreatic cancer.
Yeah,
And
that's.
so it's devastating. And then,
Hmm.
you like for my dad, we wanted him to do chemo. We're like, well, you gotta do chemo. Because they're like, well, the ER doctor said 3 months. And literally from diagnosis to death, it was exactly 3 months. But we're like,
Yeah,
no. And then you get the second opinion. They're like, well, he might have 18 months if he does chemo and it does, but the
yeah,
chemo almost killed him. It was
yeah,
that
yeah,
bad.
yeah. That's what happened with my mom. She her goal was to try and make it to Christmas. She got diagnosed in what was it, right around Easter because I she had just turned 65 and
Oh, young. Oh, so
yeah,
young.
she had just turned 65 and then my parents' wedding anniversary was like a couple of weeks later and so she had turned 65, got diagnosed and then they knew they didn't have long so they went and took a trip for their or for their 35th wedding anniversary. And so and then from there I think it was like 3 months afterwards.
I'm so sorry. It's just the worst. There's just, I know your pain and you know my pain, and we really don't have to say anything about it,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
And I think that's kind of why I do the podcast the way I do it
Yeah.
and do the fundraiser this way. Cause one of the last things she said to me was, no matter what you do, keep doing the podcast. Like
Yeah.
anything else, just keep the podcast going. Because when she was like in her last like month or so, I was down in, her and my dad were living down in Florida and I went down there. I arranged it with my work. They're like, "Hey, this situation is different. Go help your dad. Work remote because it was all still pandemic time, so we were working remote anyways. So
Right.
so it was like it doesn't really matter as long as you keep your address here, you're fine."
Right.
So I went down there and I would do my podcast every once in a while, and she would listen, but all she could ever hear was my side of the conversation.
Oh
And
my goodness.
so the next morning she would wake up and I would make her breakfast or whatever. And she'd be like, so you asked your guest about this. What was her answer? You know, and so I kind of had to fill her in
Oh,
on
that's
the interview. So it was kind of a connecting moment in the last couple of months there.
that's
So
really neat.
yeah.
Yeah, that I think is really the only good thing about a cancer diagnosis like this is that you do have a little bit of time
Hmm.
where okay, it's coming to an end, it's limited, so you have the opportunity to say all the things you want to say
Hmm.
and to cry all the tears and to hug and hold and tell someone how much they mean to you. And I think that is the gift,
Hmm.
if you can say that it's a gift of cancer,
Right. Yeah.
right? Like that is the
It,
that you have a deadline or whatever.
it's something that a lot of people want to have, which is what knowing when somebody's going to die, knowing like, oh, hey, I've got a limited time. I've got to
Yeah,
say what I want to say.
yeah. And it's very interesting because we're all supposed to live that way. Like
Hmm.
we're supposed to live every day in the present, but most of us are either in the past or in the future. Because it's really hard to stay mindful and to be here now and to
Yeah.
be present and to block all the other stuff that's going out. I think also many of us are undiagnosed ADHD.
Hmm.
I'm like squirrel, and my mind is just always all over the place. But when I would go to visit my dad, also, and I'm sure you had the same experience. I mean, it ravages the body. So,
Hmm.
I mean, he lost 50 pounds and I mean, it was
Yeah.
ridiculous. It was just a skeleton. It's just the
Yeah.
worst way to see
Oh, yeah.
somebody pass.
Oh, yeah.
And so you could visually see that this is not getting better. This is only
Hmm.
getting worse. And so you are there and you're just, letting them
Yeah.
know by just the touch or the wiping of the brow or whatever it is, tenderly speaking the words of love that you want to speak. And I'm one of 8 kids, so it's
Hmm.
there's a lot of different personalities and there's a lot of different experiences with parents,
Yeah.
and not everybody has the really great experience, but it's an interesting thing how it brings the family together, but also anything that's bubbling under the surface bubbles
Hmm.
up, right?
Yeah.
And there can be a lot of heartache
Yep.
that comes up, but
Yeah.
it's all meant to be there to heal so that you
Yeah.
can help your loved one move
Oh,
on.
yeah. It was, yeah, I definitely resonate with all that. And, it was definitely a hard time for us, especially right after she had passed, because she had went from and the doctors had kind of warned us this was going to happen, where they get like really energized and like they kind of seem like they're back to their normal selves, where they're going to get all this energy and want to go do things and do this, but then one day it's just going to switch and they're basically gonna, yeah.
And they shut down, like
Yeah.
they like basically go to sleep,
Yeah.
and they can hear you still, but they're like getting ready to leave, and they
Yeah.
sometimes need permission,
Yeah.
yeah, that's, thank God for hospice.
Hmm.
I think one of the things that well, we understood, there's so many of us that we didn't really need hospice until we needed them, right?
Hmm.
But I didn't realize you could call them in earlier. Many people wait till the very end.
Yeah.
And you can
Yeah.
actually call them in months in advance, even a year. They'll stay there a year, even if
Yeah.
you've got a cancer that comes and goes. If you
Yeah.
start getting better and you don't need hospice, they'll leave. And then you can
Yeah.
call them back if you need. So I think people, when they hear the word hospice, they're like, oh no, it's the end.
Yeah.
And it's really, I wish we had called them in sooner, because their whole thing is to make sure that your loved one is not in pain.
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
Absolutely.
yeah.
It's We called in hospice, I want to say about 6 weeks before. My mom decided that she wasn't going to do chemo anymore because, similar to your dad, she made it through two treatments, and they said had she gone through a third one, it would have killed her.
Yep. That's
So
my dad. It was bad.
yeah.
I felt so bad too, because he was just doing it for us. He was like, I'm good.
Yeah.
I've done everything I want to do. My dad was 74. So
Yeah.
I thought my dad was so healthy. I thought he was going to be in his 90s. My grandfather
Mm.
died at 94 or something.
Yeah.
And I thought, my dad was going to live a lot longer than he did.
Hmm.
But so when I remember talking about it, I think this is so unfair and this sucks. And he's like, yeah, I'm okay. I've
Mm.
done what I wanted to do and I'm happy and I'm ready. I
Yeah.
don't think he was ready for how painful it was going to be.
Hmm.
My dad was maybe from a generation where, you real men
So,
don't do drugs and we don't need pain
yeah.
meds, it's like, that just that attitude of like you don't do it because that means you're weak.
Hmm.
But that kind of pain, no.
Yeah.
You need morphine.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Now, was your dad back in California when
Yes,
he? Okay.
this was in 2009. So my dad died on May the 4th. May the 4th
Mm.
be with you. And we were all joking like my dad, well, so interestingly, something I can say about pancreatic cancer that I learned from just, you know, like you do, way more
Hmm.
about it than you would ever want to.
Yep. Yep.
But men are more susceptible to it, just FYI,
Mm.
especially men that drink alcohol and have diabetes. So there's four things, and my dad had three of them. Three of the things
Mm.
that say that just make it that this is more likely that somebody like that is going to get
Yeah.
it than somebody not. So he had three. My dad was adult onset diabetes. He was a teetotaler, a big drinker on the weekends. My dad was a
Yeah.
dentist, so he did not drink during the week. He had fun on the weekends,
Yeah.
and then he was male. Uh, so anyway, I can't remember what we were talking about right before that, but that.
Your dad was out in California.
Oh yeah, so we were in. So my son was born on the 9th, and he was
Mm.
getting ready to turn 3, and my dad died right before my son turned 3. He died on the 4th. So it was horrible. We don't have to go into those
Yeah.
moments because that's a different podcast. But
Yeah.
you get really angry. I think it was very interesting. I mean, you had this experience. I remember towards the end of my dad's life, I'm like, gosh, just die already. Like
Hmm.
they're in so much pain, and it is so hard to see them suffering, and so hard to
Hmm.
see with the body. Like I said, the skeleton, and like my dad weighed under 100 pounds. Oh, it was
Yeah.
terrible. And you just want them to be out of pain. So that's where
Yeah.
just please die already.
Yeah.
And then the minute my dad died, it was like, no, like
Yeah.
it's so hard to let that happen. And
Hmm.
yeah, it was very
It's,
traumatic, very
yeah.
traumatic.
I think for me at that point, I was just so tired because my mom passed away at like midnight, like right around
Yeah,
midnight.
yeah,
And we had just left the hospice facility because we would do a rotate. Like my sister would be there in the morning, I'd be there in the afternoons, and then my dad would stay the overnight. Like just because we always kind of wanted to have somebody there in case
sure.
something happened or like whatever, or decisions needed to be made, or like whatever. Um, and so my sister and I had just left. We went and got something to eat, went back to the condo or whatever we were staying at because funny situation, my mom and dad were going to go on a year-long boat trip, and so
Right.
they had rented out their house.
Oh no.
And so when everything kind of happened, they were only 4 months into this year-long lease that they had made. And so my dad had to go rent a condo,
Of course.
which, yeah, so
I know.
that
It's
was a whole,
interesting, isn't it, when you're going through the the process of
yeah.
a loved one and dying, how much laughter there is and how much
Hmm.
joking there is. I think it's because we don't want to face it. We're like, it's the elephant in the room, right? It's
Hmm.
happening, but so there's a lot of joking and laughter that is surrounding this very solemn thing, which is just because that's who we are as human beings. That's what makes us whole. We're not always sad or always happy. We're kind of like, it's there all the time. Grief
Hmm.
is there all the time. Love is there all the time. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, was your dad your influence into music or?
No, he wasn't. My dad was a dentist.
Mm.
And I actually worked with him for 7, almost 8 years.
Mm.
In my 20s, I had moved to LA to do some music things in LA, and then came back, and then I started working for my dad, and he was quite an artist when it came to dentistry. I'll tell a
Nice.
quick story. When I remember coming back from lunch once, and I looked at the schedule, to see what patient was coming in, and it was someone with like 8 or 10 fillings, and I was like, oh, because I was just a dental assistant. I'm just
Hmm.
basically sucking spit, right?
Right.
It's like, oh, it's mundane, but and I asked my dad, I asked him, I said, when you see that on the schedule, does that just make you want to, like how I expressed
Mm-hmm.
myself, like not kill yourself, but
Yeah. Yeah.
you just would rather be doing anything else. And my dad's like, no, because every tooth is a work of art. And I was like, wow. That's when I realized that my dad was an artist,
Hmm.
but it was with dentistry. So he was kind of that nerdy, you know, he was really good. I was so
Yeah.
glad that my dad was a really good dentist, because um, it was neat to experience that through the patients,
Mm.
experience his art through my patients.
Yeah.
He was not my patients, his patients. um, he was very supportive of my music. And
Nice.
I remember him one time telling me, "You're so lucky that you get to express yourself emotionally through songs, through singing
Yeah.
and songs." And I was in my 20s at that time, and I was like, yeah, yeah, whatever, not really understanding what that meant, because I think when you're younger as a musician, you're like, I just want to make it big, and I want to tour the world, and I want to do all
Right.
these things, and me, look at me, look at me. And then as you get older, in your 30s and 40s, you're like, gosh, if I could just write one good song. Or I just want that, I just want to love people with music. And then as I
Mm.
got even older, or 40, 50, 60, whatever I am now, I have no idea. Um, it was really all about the audience, and just wanting
Mm.
to help them. And I've gone through some trauma and tragedy in my life, in the past 6 to 7 years, that almost took me out, as far as just like I didn't think I'd ever sing again, and all this,
Mm.
just it was horrific and very tragic. And music saved my life. Music helped me get out of
Nice.
that darkness and back into wanting to sing. I didn't even think I'd
Hmm.
ever sing again. It was so bad. And so I have a new record out this year in
Mm.
2024, called Dark Sky Blue, and the whole record is a record of healing songs that I wrote through my healing journey. So it's
Hmm.
not like, let's write a song about healing.
Right.
It literally is, okay, this is what I'm feeling, and I need to get this out so that I can listen to this on repeat over and over and over, so that it helps me heal, because music gives us all permission to feel our
Yeah.
feelings, which is why we cry when we hear
Yeah.
a sad song, and because
Right.
we need to cry, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of, I had an interesting experience, though, through with my dad, and hospice, because there was San Diego Hospice. A friend of mine was working there, and she knew my dad had passed in 2009. So, and he passed in May, and that December,
Hmm.
San Diego Hospice would always throw this huge um, gathering of anybody who used San Diego Hospice that year was invited, and
Hmm.
any past years, anybody who was a supporter of it would
Yeah.
come to this free concert at the Civic Center, which holds about 6,000 people.
Oh wow.
Um, and the San Diego Symphony would play, and they would play holiday songs,
Oh wow.
and it was a beautiful experience. And then afterwards, you could get cookies and hot cocoa, and all sorts of stuff. And it was also for people who were benefactors, who got
Hmm.
their loved ones. If you wanted to have your loved one's picture up on the wall or
Yeah.
whatever, or up on the screen, you paid a certain amount of money, and it was also a fundraising event for them, of
Yeah.
course. But it was a very incredible. So the symphony learned one of my songs. I have a song called "Where Angels Walk," and my
Oh
friend
wow.
knew my dad had passed. So it was mainly the string section. It wasn't the whole orchestra, but mainly the strings, and they joined us. There's actually a YouTube video. I can get you the link. Of
Nice.
singing it with my guitar player, but it's pretty. If you ever get a chance to sing with an orchestra, the answer is yes, or hell yes, or whatever it is. And it was an incredible experience of being in a room, a huge room, obviously. Because after I played, I went down into the audience to listen and just to be
Yeah.
there. And it was about half full, 3 or 4 thousand people there.
Hmm.
And everybody there knew how everybody there was feeling. because
Hmm.
if you were there, it was because you lost somebody and you
Yeah.
used hospice. And so people were crying. People were, nobody was really sobbing. But there was a lot of tears and nobody was like, "Are you okay?" Because
Hmm.
it was an incredibly healing experience to be in a room with people who knew exactly how you felt. And that's
Hmm.
kind of how I feel right now with you. Like I see you and I remember that pain and I know that pain and it
Yeah. It
one day we're going to not have to deal with this in this world.
right. Yeah. It's so incredible how music just tends to save people
Yeah. Right.
in so many different ways, whether it's getting to express your emotions or what you're feeling or, what you're thinking by creating music or listening to music on the reverse side
Hmm.
and kind of getting that emotional enema out of you.
Yes. Yeah.
So it,
Well, with my new record, I really feel like um, it's the beauty that came from the ashes.
mm-hmm,
That's what the music is. It's like, let me piece you back together here. Let's, okay, here we are. We're safe. Now, what do you want to say? And I think as
mm-hmm,
musicians, we think everybody can do this. Everybody can write a song. Everybody can sing. Everybody can play an instrument, which by the way, everybody should. Everybody should write at least one song in their life. It doesn't have to be a song anybody hears but them, but everybody should be able to write one song. Okay.
yep,
But the point being is uh it's amazing how my beliefs, I believe in God, so that's my belief system too.
mm-hmm,
And I do believe that God uses our pain and our struggle and our challenges to help make the world a better place and
mm-hmm,
to evolve us and to God always uses darkness for good. He always finds a way. It's you think about any big tragedy for our country,
yeah,
JFK or 9/11 or whatever it is. um, Everybody knows where they were, and then
mm-hmm,
we all see how we moved through it and how people come together. Just recently, this Hurricane Helene, and
mm-hmm,
how so many people came to help from all over the country to
yep,
help because that's who we are. That's how we are.
yep,
And I feel like um, it, I feel like so many people in this country want to get back to that feeling of
yeah,
like, I love you, you're my friend, you're my
yep,
neighbor, I'm here to help, you're here to help, let's help each other. And
yep,
not you don't agree with me so you must die.
right.
I
It
think we're this let's no 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 we're better than that, so I'm
the
hopeful.
the pendulum is starting to swing back that way. I feel
Yeah,
like.
I think that I was talking about this with a friend the other day. It's like there's a bunch of us, we've all kind of, every single one of us have gotten the notice that it's time to move to a different classroom, right?
Hmm.
But many of us are like, but wait a minute, I like this classroom. I know everybody in this classroom and they all
Right.
do the same thing I do. And it's like, nope, you're going to a different classroom. You're not going to know anyone. It's time to grow. And we're like, no. And the people that are just hanging onto the door, like, I'm not leaving,
Nope.
are the ones that, need to kind of move on in a different way,
Yep.
you know?
100% agreed.
Yeah.
100% agreed.
And the rest
I,
of us are going to keep trying to evolve and, I just, my belief system says we are all love and light, every single
mhm.
one of us. And if we can look at each other with our hearts and not our minds and not take a
Mhm.
lot of things personally, like when somebody cuts you off when you're driving,
Yeah.
99% of the time it's because they weren't paying attention, not
Yeah.
because they're trying to actually, that person in that car, I'm going to mess with them. Every now and then that does happen, but not
Mhm.
usually. But we all take it so personally,
Yep. 100%. I want to backtrack a little bit because you
Okay.
brought up a good point, very interesting point that I've been experimenting with over the last 6 months that everyone should write a song.
Yes.
It,
Yes. I
it,
think I have the book here. Hold on. Oh, please. Wait a second. Where is it? Oh, where is it? It's not here. Oh, shoot. I must have moved it to another room.
it's all good.
There's a book
It,
called How to Write One Song by Jeff Tweedy.
okay.
You have
I,
to get it. It's the best book. I bought it on Audible.
mhm.
Then I got the book, just the hard copy. And
See,
he
the
reads it.
funny
He's
thing
funny.
about
Yeah.
the funny thing about books is every time I buy it, shortly after I buy it, it gets uploaded to Spotify, which I already pay for. And it's like, Okay, so I
Well,
just paid 30 bucks. Yeah.
so Audible is, it's you pay a monthly fee
Yeah.
and it gives you one credit. Well, that's one book and it's basically you're paying to buy one book a month, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But you're getting it with the author reading it.
That's
It's
cool.
the difference and it's Jeff Tweedy in this book because it's his How to
Hmm.
Write One Song, right? And
Yeah.
he's hilarious. He's a great writer, but in the Audible, he takes his guitar out and plays. So you're also getting music, and he's
Nice.
explaining things, and he's giving you like little prompts and stuff so that you can, I think it's interesting. One of the things that because I've been writing songs for a long time,
Hmm.
and there's a craft of writing a song, and there's also like the inspiration and like Tom Petty used to call it the cosmic radio. He goes, I don't know,
Right.
I was tuned into the cosmic radio and the song downloads, right? And that does happen. It's a divine, I agree. I believe it's a
Yeah.
divine placement, but there also is the craft of it. But I think when you're sitting down to write a song, you think everything's got to rhyme and it's got to be, and it stops you. You're stuck
Hmm.
here. You got to go here and
Yeah.
just have a conversation of like, I want to write a song that says, and
Right.
just get it all out. And then you can kind of start seeing that what is the main thing about this? That's usually your chorus.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
then the verses the
What?
light
Yeah.
and the second verse is the dark or the other way
Right.
around, right?
Yeah.
It's basic once you start going in that thing. And I think it's exciting for people to see that they can create something like
Yeah.
that, especially if you put personal details in it, because you're not writing this song to be a hit song on the radio. You're just writing a
Hmm.
song to say, I wrote a song.
Yeah.
I wrote a song.
Yeah. Oh, so the reason I brought that part back up was about
Uh-oh.
6 months ago. I'm not a musician. I tried
Okay.
to be when I was in fourth grade. I tried to play an instrument. I probably had I stuck it out, I would have probably been all right. But when you're in fourth grade and not wanting to practice, it's kind of hard to be like, hey, we're gonna keep renting instruments so you can not practice, you know?
Did you do sports?
So yes and no. I have cerebral palsy.
Oh,
So
okay.
I played baseball in growing up, and then I started bowling, and like so I kind of experimented with a bunch of different things. But music was something I really wanted, or I thought I really wanted to do, but I just didn't have the temperament to practice. So,
Right.
anyways, so
It's
about six. Go ahead.
Oh, it's
Go ahead.
not easy. Practicing, so I'm a very bad guitar player.
Mhm.
I always tell people when it comes to guitar player, I'm a really good singer
Yeah.
because I don't want to practice.
Fair.
But that's why I always surround myself with great musicians who, yeah, I don't have to
Yeah.
practice, right?
Right.
I hear you because there was just so many other things I wanted to do besides sit
Mm.
down and practice. And I
Yep.
think ADHD might have had something to do with that.
Fair. Fair. But so 6 months ago, I started. There was a couple of. It's stemmed from while my mom was dealing with a pancreatic cancer, a situation that happened in my outside of my family life, my personal life, and then
Right.
it resurfaced itself about 6 months ago, and I just had all this rage kind of building. Like I'm not a very emotional like I'm not gonna like physically just get super upset and start lashing out.
Right.
You get kind of what I'm saying. And so, but I had like all this rage kind of building up,
Yes.
and then I just kind of had this defiant statement that I just kept making. And as it kind of kept growing, it turned into like a chorus of a song. I was like, man, that sounds like a song. So I wrote it down, and then
Nice.
I just started build as like the emotion, like as I started kind of processing everything, I started writing down different things, and it's a very graphic song. I will say that much. So we're going to kind of leave it at that. But
Okay.
um, it,
But
I do,
it serves its purpose.
yeah,
It allowed you to start healing because you got that pain and that rage out,
yeah,
and now it's on the paper. Then
yeah,
when you sing the song, you're like, ah, and
yeah,
that's a release too.
yeah.
That's a release too.
And so my goal over the next 2 years, so that there's a lot of medical devices out now that are like really helping with cerebral palsy and giving my dexterity back and all that stuff in my left arm.
Yeah, I have a
Oh,
very dear friend who has cerebral palsy too.
yeah, yeah. So my goal is I want to learn how to play guitar over the next 2 years.
Nice. You
And
can do it.
so,
You know what I would
like
start with? I would start with ukulele.
yeah,
Believe it or not, it is so much easier to play, and
yeah,
it will give you that confidence to go, "Oh, I know what this is," and you'll
yeah.
going to guitar will be a lot easier too. So, just saying.
Cool. Yeah, I will definitely keep that. And I feel like a ukulele is probably a little bit easier investment to make.
A easier investment. The chords are a lot easier. You can make a
Yeah,
chord with one little finger,
yeah,
which is, it's basically a good player has the nice rhythm
yeah,
and it's just being able to make the chords.
yeah,
And so you find a song you love, there's a ukulele chart for it, and you learn
yeah,
the chords. And once you, there's only so many chords, right?
yeah,
It's not out of bounds.
yeah,
And so I think that's a great goal. And it would probably be something that would, like you said, it's a win-win. It'll help with your dexterity.
yeah,
It'll help with your getting your,
yeah,
stronger, you know, squeezing, what are those
yeah.
balls,
The,
those
the stress
stress
balls.
balls to
Yeah,
get your hands stronger.
yeah.
Yes. Done it
So
all.
that is a goal of mine.
Hey.
And I think the fact that I have like a song, like words that are kind of guiding me towards that is
Mhm.
really cool. So
Absolutely, especially one that is emotional because, like I said, it's a release, and there's a really good chance that if
mm,
you feel this way, there's got to be at least another million people on this planet that feel the same way.
yeah,
And if you think that, about the fact that we're almost 8 billion people, a million is just not that many people.
no, it's not. It really isn't.
Not
So,
really.
yeah,
So, good for you. And I highly recommend that you do that. Stay on that. I think you will be surprised and pleased with the
yeah,
results that you'll be
awesome.
able to do. So, yay.
I'm glad to have that reinforcement. And then once I learn how to play guitar, singing will be next. But everybody in my family can somehow sing. I just
Yeah,
I had somebody on the podcast the other day, and they're like, anybody can learn how to sing. You just gotta have the confidence to do it.
that's true. And
So,
I will say this, singing and speaking
hmm
are the exact same thing physiologically. You
hmm
take a breath, air goes over your vocal cords, sound comes out.
yeah,
It's the same thing.
yeah,
So if you can, hey, that's my car, you can sing that too.
yeah, yeah,
You do it all the time where you're telling a story and you're like, and then, you know what happened? You won't believe what happened. And I could believe, and we jump
yeah.
all over the place when we talk. It's it's singing and speaking. Same thing. You could do it. Trust me.
Yep. Yep. I would, I do. I 100% trust you. And it's gonna be a process. Like I'm not naive in that aspect, but
Yeah.
it's something that I want to try and accomplish before I turn 40, which is in about
Nice.
2.5 years. So
There you go. You're just a baby. And you
yeah.
know what? Enjoy it. It's fun and it's frustrating a little bit because you want your free. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
my fingers won't do what I want them to
Right.
do until they do.
Yep.
It's literally like anything. I mean,
One.
let's face it, there are a few people that just pick it up and you're like, really? Because that's not fair. They're just
Hmm.
good at it naturally, good at it easily. In anything in life, we've seen it through our whole life. But for most of us, it takes a minute, it takes a
Yeah.
bit. And that's okay because I heard it all the time when I was younger. It's not the destination, it's the journey. And you're like,
Yeah.
well, but I want to get there. I'm sick
Right.
of being here. I want to be at the top of the mountain. I don't want to be here on the side of the hill. I'm tired of this. But as you get older and you get into your 40s and you push into your 50s, you realize, oh my gosh, it actually really is what a blessing another day is. What a gift another song is.
Hmm.
What an incredible beauty, and there's so much beauty and love and life around us, which is why I feel like the world is evolving, and we are getting back to that place because there are so many more of us out here that believe that there are happy good people, more happy good people than there are angry, sad people.
Yeah.
And again, it's not bad to be angry
Yeah.
because anger has a spiritual message, and the spiritual message is something's got to change.
Right.
Right? That's what
Right.
anger does for you. But to just keep pointing the finger at everybody else and not just realizing maybe I'm the one that needs to change. Maybe I'm the one that needs to grow. And
Yeah.
going inside and going that way, that's how the world evolves. That's how we all, but it literally, let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me. I mean,
Hmm.
seriously, how can I expect you to be at peace if I can't find it in me? And
Hmm.
vice versa. You can't expect me to be happy if you're not happy. Like
Right.
that seems like well, how is that? What? How can we all be happy at the same time? Well, it's a mystery. It's not
Hmm.
about being happy at the same time. It's about focusing and understanding and feeling that I am love, I am light, and so are you. And we are made from the same source. We all come from that same beauty. And so some of us are having a bad day, okay? I'm sorry you're having a bad day. I'm going to say a prayer for you and walk away,
Hmm.
and keep walking. And so I don't know. We'll get there. I don't have any of the answers, but I am a, a hopeless optimist. I just am.
Okay.
A hopeful,
I,
hopeless.
I,
I'm hopeful, optimistic.
I
Glass
wish
half
I had,
full.
yeah, I wish I had more hopeful optimistics around me when I was like 18 to 22. Like the really, like obviously when you're like growing up till you get 18, that's a very developmental age, but I feel like 18 to 22, that kind of cements and imprints the kind of person you're going to be. And I had a lot of very negative people around me at that point in my life. So yeah.
Yes, that's hard because our brains are pretty basic. They will
Hmm.
believe anything you tell them.
Yeah.
So if you say, I'm stupid, your brain's like, I'm stupid. And if you say, I'm smart, your brain's like, I'm smart. It'll believe. So whatever you tell it, you're right. So
Hmm.
if you're constantly filling it, up with garbage and with
Yeah.
junk and with unhappy ugliness, it it's gonna have an effect on you. And it
Yeah.
doesn't mean that you walk around going, everything's great and life is good and everything's perfect, because that's not real either.
Hmm.
It's finding the balance of I I can be grieving my father's death still
Hmm.
and missing him desperately still, and also have an incredible beautiful day and be at the happiest time of my life. I can find space in my body for both of that.
Hmm.
I don't know if
Yeah.
that's something you experience where you're like, how can I be so happy when my heart is so broken too?
Yeah. It's something that I've come to terms with over the last, let's see, mom passed away in 2021, so 3.5 years or so. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that, it gets better, it gets easier.
Mm,
That is not the right way to express it, I think. For me, that doesn't feel like the right way to express it. But what I think happens is that the the deep shards
hmm.
of your heart,
Yeah,
broken, pointy shards of your heart start getting smoothed off, like when the
yeah,
ocean starts smoothing off rocks,
yeah.
right? So it's still broken, it's still not perfect, but it it changes. It
Hmm.
changes to where you can live with it
Yeah,
and live
abs-
through it. And
absolutely.
I think that's human nature. I think we all have our journey, and like, that you just never know what another person is going through. You and I wouldn't have known that
Yeah,
each of us lost a parent to this
mm,
fucking disease. I'm sorry.
yeah. No, you're fine.
I just cussed and I'm sorry, but I feel like I joke about this, but I think the only thing you can say that never offends anybody is fuck cancer.
Yeah, yeah,
Right? Fuck cancer.
yeah.
And you can even say it in church, I think, and people wouldn't be offended because
Right.
everybody's like, yep. You know what I mean?
Well,
Um,
because what kind of person's going to say no to that? Like,
right. No, it's okay. No. So we're all on that same road, and you just don't know if someone just lost somebody and
hmm,
they're lashing out in pain.
yeah,
And we know that pain. We've
yeah,
been there, and and it also, other things happen. Life keeps happening, right? And
yeah.
tragedy and trauma is here, not it's unavoidable, I think, in order to become more.
Hmm.
Have to go through challenges. You just do. Because, like, let's face it, if God said, okay, if you stay on this road here, everything's gonna be fine. You're just gonna stay where you're just gonna pretty much be where you are right now. And you're just gonna
Hmm.
go to the very end and everything's fine. if you go down this road, you're going to go through some really hard times. It's going to
Yeah.
be painful. There's going to be a lot of crying, a lot of tears, but on the other side of it, you're going to be a better person. Everybody's going to go, no, I'm good. I'm
Right.
staying here. I'm not going that way. I'm going to the. We don't get a choice. You didn't get a choice.
Mm-hmm.
Your mom didn't get a choice. My dad didn't get a choice. This was how their body decided to leave this plane, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so we face it and we scream and cry and yell and then we accept it
Mm-hmm.
and then we transform from it. We
Yep.
become more. So, and that's what's changed my art and my music because I've this is my 13th record. I've been doing this a
Mm-hmm.
long time and you know, it it really this record really is one of like gosh if these songs have helped me so much in my painful journey, maybe they'll help somebody else. Maybe somebody else will find some relief in it. And I'll go do these gigs here in Nashville and a lot of singer it's a lot of singer songwriter rounds,
Mm.
which is,
Yeah.
it's a Nashville thing.
Yeah.
But also it's very hard to find gigs in Nashville because so many people will play for free. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's a conundrum. But I'll go and do these songwriter rounds and I'll play one of these songs and then someone will come up to me and go, "Oh my gosh, that song, it just I almost had to leave. It
Yeah.
made me feel this and that and the other thing." And I say to them, "You're the reason I was supposed to be here today."
Yeah.
That's what I think music does for us. All these people going to the Taylor Swift concerts, whether you're a fan or not, whether you think she's great or you think she's a horrible human being, there's a reason they're going because
Yeah.
it's decades. She's doing decades and decades represent her entire audience who are
Yep.
coming from different decades along with her music and she's giving them an experience and they're remembering the joy and the laughter and the pain because let's face it, that girl writes a lot of breakup songs.
Yes.
She has a
Yes.
lot of pain that she's getting out. And
She has started some kind of a trend, and it's like,
yes. And it
yes.
and it's why it's been sold out. It's why people go over and over. Why? Because they need the release because it gives them healing. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what I'm hoping that this new record of mine does for others. And I know it
Yeah.
has already. I've experienced other people's experience of it. And I just literally want to keep writing songs that help people and help me and we'll laugh and we'll cry and it'll be better than cats.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I was listening to your new record this morning because I was preparing for this interview,
Oh, nice.
and so I was just like, as I was getting ready this morning, um, I want to say it was probably about an hour or so before work, and I was like putting track, just kind of gathering things, just kind of doing like little quick chores that I can do in the morning or whatever. And I had your record playing on my phone, just kind of out loud, whatever. Get into the car, start driving, and it's probably what? How many tracks are on this album?
10, 10 records.
10? Yeah,
No.
10. So I was probably like on track 6 or 7, and I was like, well, I may not finish the album before I get to work, but 9 out of 10 songs isn't bad. That like that
Right.
that's not bad. And so I was driving to work, and the way I usually go detoured me like 4 minutes out of my way, which gave me exactly enough time to listen to that 10th song.
Wow. Yeah.
And I was like, well, that's quite the coincidence, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. That's what I call a coincidence.
Yeah. And it was that last song that just kind of really, really got me. So yeah, it was quite the coincidence.
Yeah, that song, Somebody's Brother. Um, in my mind, I had my whole record, like you start at the beginning, and this is my journey of healing,
Yeah.
right? So when I was a kid, like we didn't have the internet.
Yeah.
So you put a record on a record player and you
Yeah.
listened from the front to the end, then you flipped it over and listened to it in order, right? You didn't get to shuffle unless you
Hmm.
picked the needle up and moved it to a different one,
Yeah.
which of course you could. So, I really intentionally put these in order of this is the beginning of the healing and this is all the way to the
Yeah.
transformation. But so in my mind, it was going to start with Dark Sky Blue, which was being in the darkness, monstrous
Yeah.
darkness, and then it starts moving towards the light. And the last song was going to be I Choose Love.
Hmm.
And then somebody's brother just kept it just kept knocking at the door. And it was a song that took me 6 years to write. Like I
Oh
started
wow.
writing it almost right out of the gate. That's not true. It took me almost 6 months to a year before I was writing again and
Mm.
just dealing with life. But regardless, once I started doing it, that was one I wanted to do, and I just couldn't finish it because I was too close to it. And so that whole that song, that idea of that song is like, are we all judged by the worst thing we ever do?
Hmm.
If everybody knew about the worst thing you ever did in life, is that how you're going to be known? Um, and but until we love each other like somebody's brother, we're never going to find that
Yeah.
peace and that understanding, because we all have gone through hard things, and some of us get through and some of us don't. And so it was a song I was very scared to put on the record because I think um, it's provocative in some ways that
Hmm.
um, it, it's not a song where I'm trying to change somebody's opinion.
Yeah.
It's a song where I'm trying to say, have you ever thought of it this way? And it took me 5 different songwriters to finish that song. It's co-written with 5 songwriters.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's I definitely picked up on, you know, and I think maybe that's kind of why um it hit me a little bit differently, was because I could feel that it wasn't trying to change my opinion on anything,
Hmm.
but it was just showing me a different perspective.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. And
yeah.
yeah, it's been that song has been one that a lot of people gravitate towards.
Hmm.
And that's that whole idea of like we are all love and light. Even when
Yeah.
we do horrible, horrible things, we are love and light. We just are, and every single one of us was 2 years old once,
Yep.
and we were just super cute. And all we wanted to do was love and be loved and eat,
Hmm.
and take naps and poop. That was our whole life.
Right.
And if we could see each other that way, obviously, when somebody does something that is, breaks the law or murder or whatever it is, that is something that our whole system takes us through. But I've been doing prison ministries
Mm.
since I've been here, and many of these prisoners aren't they've done terrible, terrible things. They're not getting out. They're still people. They're
Hmm.
still 2 years old. They still have feelings and emotions, and they're human beings, right?
Yeah.
And how hard must it be to try to be so tough and rough and hard all the time when you just can never let your guard down
Hmm.
and be vulnerable? Because once you can be vulnerable and express your feelings, that's where the healing begins. So we go in
Yeah.
and write songs with these prisoners. There's a group here called The Beat of Life, and we go. That's why I went to York. I was writing with the prisoners
Hmm.
there, and they don't call them prisoners; they call them residents, which I liked. Again, not judging right or wrong, because that's not my job.
Yeah.
We have a legal system for all of that, but recognizing that all of us have the ability within us to do terrible, horrible things if the
Hmm.
circumstances were on, whatever. And so this is a way to help just put a little bit more healing out into the world and a little more hope.
Hmm.
Because hope is what's going to help us all transcend our darkest days.
Yep. 100%. 100%. So how often are you playing? Like, obviously, you mentioned that it's a little bit harder to find shows and stuff in Nashville because there's so many musicians willing to do it for free and like all this stuff. But how often are you
Everybody
out?
here is so good.
Right.
Everybody here is so good. It's wonderful. It's fun. It doesn't matter where you go. You're like, wow, you're
Right.
amazing. Wow, you're amazing. So it's really fun to be a part of that. I go, I had a whole career and a life my whole family is from San
Hmm.
Diego, so I fly back there and work do gigs. My next gig is in December. It's my
Nice.
That's my annual holiday show. So I'll do that there, and then I'm actually planning a tour in England again. This will be my first
Nice.
time going back to England since 2019
Oh, well. Yeah.
because I went in 2019. Um, and then 2020 happened.
Yep.
And then poor musicians really it was very hard on anybody in the arts, in the art.
Yep.
It just was. And so it's been taking some time to get back, but I just reached out to my agent and he's put feelers out, and I just got the email back saying I've got enough people that we looks like we have a tour, so we're
Nice.
starting so that'll be in July of 2025. So
Nice.
and then I have a super group I call my dear friend who also co-wrote 8 songs on this record. Her name's Kim McLean.
Hmm.
She and I've been friends. We met the day after 9/11.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And that was the beauty in Out of the Ashes for me. And 9/11 is getting to meet Kim, who's one of my best friends on the
Hmm.
planet. We've written a ton of songs together. And she and another friend, her name is Randy Driscoll, and she has a thing here. She does every other Monday at the Cambria Hotel downtown off of 8th Avenue South,
Hmm.
called Randy's Revival. And that's just a
Oh,
bunch
well.
of songwriters that come and do rounds. But the three of us have a super group. We call ourselves Three of Hearts
Nice.
because all of our music is heart centric.
Yes.
But we also have these crazy 3-part harmonies, and it's super fun. So we've been writing some songs together, and then we all sing on each other's songs because we all have songs as solo artists.
Yeah.
So it's pretty fun. So they're probably going to come with me to England, and also we're starting to do more gigs around
Nice.
town, and that's wonderful. So that's about it for me right now.
Nice. That's cool. I'm hoping to, well, not hoping. I'm trying to figure out the finances to do a trip out to the UK in April. So,
Yes. Yes,
yeah.
I am having a fundraising. I'm starting to build a thing in April of 2025
Yeah.
to raise money for my
Yeah.
tour because it's
Right.
expensive. It just
Yeah.
is. But you never know, you might have opportunities, even sharing it with family, that this is what my goal,
Yeah.
and you think of ways that I can help you, that I can earn some extra money, or you might have something you can sell
Yeah.
that you would be able to get back in a
Yep.
different way. It's so worth
Oh,
it, and every American should go just because that's our
yeah.
motherland,
Oh,
but
yeah.
also the Beatles.
Well, and actually, so my mom's dad his family is British.
Oh, so you probably
And
have cousins.
so actually, I do. They own one of the biggest paper mills in the UK.
Hey, family, do you have any
It,
frequent flyer miles you could share?
right? So we found out after my grandpa had passed away. He passed away in 2017, I think. Um, my my brain can't even process 5 years ago, let alone anything past that.
Gotcha.
Um, but yeah, he had passed away. Um, and my after my mom had passed, my dad had started going through a lot of like the paperwork that just got thrown up in the attic after both my mom's parents had passed. And he was like, "Yeah, your grandpa was trying to reconnect with his family over in the UK the last couple of years of his life. Like
Oh,
he had hired like some kind of a not a private investigator, but like there was like a family attorney or something that he was communicating through.
geez.
And it was like, wow, that's really cool. So
That would be so worth it. And it's I love going to the UK. It
yeah,
is the entire country would fit inside the state of Texas, just so you
yep,
know.
yep, yep, yep.
So it's you can really see the whole place.
Oh yeah,
You can see England, Ireland, and Scotland,
yeah,
which is worth doing. I mean, that's a you need time
yeah,
because there's
oh yeah,
so much to do. I mean, you can
oh yeah,
spend a week in London and not see it all and not do it
right,
all. And
yeah,
then take the train up to Scotland, which is what we did with our kids, and they love Scotland. And in the
right,
summer, it's like the sun goes down at like 10 p.m. You're like,
right.
what? You think
What's
it's
going
5 o'clock. You're just like, oh.
right? It
um, yeah.
so one of the things that we've started doing, and we've got our next gig at the end of the month. We've started doing like a live podcast. So basically, we treat it kind of like a an open mic, but we record it. We treat it like a podcast.
Nice.
So
Okay.
basically, except we know ahead of time who's going to be performing. So it's not like, oh, hey, who's a musician who wants to come up and sing? Although
Right.
that would be quite an interesting idea, but I think we'd have to get some kind of standing first to get that one off the ground. But
Nice.
yeah, so I was like, I had this grand idea. It's like, well, if I'm going over to the UK, I wonder if I could book out a couple of these like live podcast deals. And
Yeah,
then I started just like daydreaming. I was like, oh, I'd go to London, Liverpool, Manchester, just kind of pointing out all these things and
absolutely.
going back to your point about how small the UK is. I was like, man, I'm going all over the country here, and it's saying that it's like a 7 hour car ride, and I'm
Right.
like,
You're like, huh?
wait, that doesn't track. Like 7 hours, I'm not even out of the state of Texas at that point.
And you know
So
the other, yeah, really. And the other good thing, I mean, there's so many good things about England and the UK. I'll just say the
yeah,
UK. Um, but they're such big music lovers.
yep,
They like, they have a budget
yeah,
in their finances for how many shows they can see that month. I seriously, it's like their life is around like what shows they're going to see, when do they
yeah,
have to work, and when do they get to see their friends and family. So it's just phenomenal to be around that kind of energy and to have people, and there's, they want to listen to your story, and
yeah,
they want to hear what the song is about, and they want to hear the song, and it's a wonderful experience as an artist. But I think
guys,
they would do great over there. They love Americans, they
yeah,
really do.
yeah,
And especially American music.
mm-hmm.
Americana is huge over there,
Oh, yeah,
and so it's a good
yeah,
thing. You make that
oh, yeah.
happen. 2025.
Yep. I have a few outstanding uh invites for music festivals that want to bring me over to, do because that's how we got our start, was doing interviews at music festivals.
Nice.
And so yeah, but
Perfect. You can
I
do.
need to call in on
And
one of
you're
those.
good. You're a good interviewer. I will say that.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
So but I
And
don't want to
keep
keep
doing what
you
you're doing because it matters. I know I
uh,
said that in my email, but this, like you and I wouldn't have ever met had
mm-hmm,
it not been for this horrible disease that took a
yeah,
family member of ours. And it matters that cures are found, and or testing is,
yeah,
done so that you can find out at stage one,
yeah,
instead of
100%.
stage four, and that people can have the best quality of life that they can have. And so I think what you're doing is amazing, and I'm grateful that you said yes to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I would have it no other way. It was, it it's amazing how many people are starting to kind of talk about this, and how many musicians are linked to some sort of pancreatic disease, whether it's cancer, pancreatitis, or like all sorts of different things. um, and the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network. I don't know if are you familiar with them? Well,
I'm
okay.
not. Is that
Uh,
is that has that been around for a while?
I don't know how long they've been around, but when we first got notified, they were really proactive on helping find like treatment options. But obviously, when you're stage 4, it's kind of like,
Yeah,
yeah. So,
yeah,
um,
I know that.
but that's kind of why they were so helpful throughout the entire process, that it was like, you know what, every year in honor of my mom, we got to do this. So,
I think it's beautiful. And
I,
hey, if you've got room for me next year, I'll be here.
I appreciate that. I
And
have,
yes, write that
yeah,
song.
yeah,
Save those dollars.
yes.
You could start with, your holiday money and say,
All right,
"All right, everyone, I don't want any presents, just send me money. I'm saving for a trip." Let
right,
everybody know. You'd be surprised. Somebody might say, "Hey, here's for your trip. This is for your trip."
right. Awesome. I will keep that in mind. I will 100% keep that. It's it's one of those things where I don't think about that often, because it's like, but yeah,
Does it feel like pie in the sky? Does it feel like,
going
yeah,
to England.
that it's not possible? Does it feel like
No,
it's possible?
it feels 100% possible. Like it's not a pipe dream. It's not. you
Oh, good.
know, it's not out of the realm of possibility.
Mm.
It's just I've got to sit down and like actually,
Yeah,
yeah.
plan it. And you'd be surprised you can find really inexpensive flights.
Hmm.
And their public transit system is incredible because it's a
Yeah.
small country.
Yeah.
And they drive on the wrong side of the road, which is really weird.
Yeah.
They'll
And,
tell you, no, we don't. You drive on the wrong side of the road.
right. And
Ah,
I have several friends that live over in the UK and they come over to the States all the time and we have that conversation or whatever all the
yeah,
time. It's very entertaining. So,
yeah.
but I really appreciate your time. It's been an absolutely amazing conversation. Uh,
Yes, agreed.
if anybody wants to check out your music, any of that fun stuff, where's the best place to find you?
They can go to eveselis.com, so eveselis.com, and I have a music page that has a link to Bandcamp, which all my stuff is up there. But
Hmm.
also, I'm on all the streaming platforms as well. Anywhere where you get your streaming, Spotify or Amazon Music or whatever. I'm on all of it.
Awesome.
So check it out. Yes, Dark Sky Blue is my new record, and I'm pretty proud of it. It's very different than anything I've ever done in the past.
Nice.
So it's strings and piano and some rock and roll. So there you go.
Nice. It's a really good album. And
Thank
anybody that's listening on the stream, once we release this podcast out on our Spotify feed, the link to the Spotify link will be in the description below. We'll make sure we put all your links, so people can find
Yeah,
you. So
that sounds good.
awesome.
Great. Thank
Um,
you.
yeah, absolutely. But once again, thank you everybody for joining us. We'll be back here in a little bit with our next guest.